Hello there, lovely people. It's Alex from Nintendo Life here, and today we're reviewing for you Metroid Prime Remastered on the Nintendo Switch. This review was originally written by the superb Ollie Reynolds and has been adapted for video by me. But anyway, that's more than enough waffling. Let's dive right into things. Difficult to believe now, but there once was a time when the notion of a first-person Metroid game seemed unfathomable. Prior to the release of Metroid Prime back in 2002, the franchise had been confined to the 2D realm, with complex environments full of secrets and hidden equipment that bolstered your abilities and combat potential as you explored. The idea that Retro Studios, an entirely new entity at the time, could not only successfully reimagine the franchise in a 3D space, but also implement a first-person perspective was just frankly absurd. Yet the team accomplished it spectacularly, crafting what remains to this day as one of the finest GameCube games of all time. Now, more than 20 years later, Metroid Prime has been remastered for the Nintendo Switch, and Retro Studios has proven why it's consistently considered one of the most talented developers in the business, though the studio did have help from a number of other devs on this one. This is a stunning revamp from top to bottom, and although there are a few minor niggles here and there, we feel confident enough to say that Metroid Prime Remastered is a bona fide masterpiece and an absolutely essential addition to your Switch library. Right from the opening section, as you watch Samus's ship dock on the abandoned space pirate frigate, it's clear just how much thought and effort was put into updating the game's visuals. The original Metroid Prime was certainly no slouch, and we'd argue that it provided more than a solid foundation to work from here, but when compared side by side, the differences are simply astounding. Everything has been given a significant lick of paint, from the environments to the enemies and even Samus herself. The essence of the original game remains firmly intact, but you'd be forgiven for thinking that this was a brand new 2023 Switch release and not a remaster of a 2-decade-old GameCube title. God, 2 decades. The differences extend to the small details as well. When you enter the fiery tunnels of Magmore Caverns, you can see Samus's visor mist up with condensation, and whilst this effect has been toned down slightly from the original, we feel, the actual detail has been amplified. You can see every single little droplet of water in pristine detail. And just a little personal side note, if you look at Samus's arm cannon when you land on Talon 4, there's drips of water landing from the rain, and then if you look upwards, it starts running down. Oh my god, oh, it's so good. It's such a minor thing that the devs could easily have just bypassed it in favor of lower hanging fruit, but the sheer effort that's gone into tastefully enhancing every aspect of the visuals, it's just mind-boggling. Having said that, we do have a few minor little flies in the ointment. First off, you might have seen that one of the original developers expressed dissatisfaction with how the door visuals have been handled in the new version, and we have to agree here. Some of the beautiful detail in the original has definitely been lost. I mean, it's a minor issue, but returning players will definitely notice. We know we did. Additionally, Phendrana Drifts, one of the most iconic locations in Metroid's history, doesn't pack the same visual punch as the original. We tried desperately to figure out why this might be, and when looking back at the original game, the effect of the snowfall has actually been toned down for the remastered version, and it doesn't look quite so pretty all told. For most players, however, these issues won't be much of a problem at all, and newcomers won't even notice because of course they wouldn't. Moving on to gameplay, the remaster boasts multiple control schemes to suit your individual needs. The default method is a new twin-stick layout which leans closer to how a modern-day first-person shooter typically feels, and yes, you can invert the Y-axis if you're completely mad, and it actually works wonderfully well, and it's likely the control scheme that most players will opt for. And then there's the sensible people who will enable the gyro on this mode. You've also got the classic scheme, which looks to replicate the original GameCube controls, and we're not gonna lie, unless you've played the original consistently over the intervening years, going back to this control method might prove difficult. It feels pretty antiquated compared to the twin-stick method, as you're unable to aim whilst moving, which nowadays, that's pretty unthinkable. Incidentally, we tried using a GameCube pad with the USB adapter, and while it does involve a fair amount of tweaking, you are able to remap things appropriately in-game with the exception of the pause menu for a truly original control experience. if that's the way your bread's buttered. Then you've got the pointer motion controls, and unfortunately, we're sad to say that these don't really work as well as they did on the Wii, because it's not using the infrared stuff. If you remember, Metroid Prime 3 Corruption and the later Metroid Prime trilogy offered up an advanced mode for its motion controls, and this would effectively boost the sensitivity of your aiming and movement. Using the Wii Remote's infrared pointer felt so natural, and this was a big reason why the Wii version of Metroid Prime felt more definitive over the GameCube original, at least in terms of the controls department. The pointer gyro controls here, however, don't offer the same responsive advanced option as the Wii version, meaning the act of turning feels more like a chore, even if you ramp up the sensitivity of the on-screen cursor. You'll also need to reset the pointer here when it gets lost, which is another downgrade compared to the Wii's infrared thingy, so our advice is to stick to the new twin-stick control and slap on some gyro aiming because, mate, it's Splatoon Metroid. The true magic of Metroid Prime Remastered, however, lies in the moment-to-moment gameplay. If you've never played the original before, you're in for a real treat. What Retro Studios did with this title is nothing short of miraculous, taking the essence of the franchise's 2D roots and implementing it beautifully into a 3D environment. Like any great Metroid game, there's a good dollop of backtracking as you navigate multiple unique biomes, and there's no truly greater feeling than gaining a new ability or power-up and realizing that you can now access a suite of new areas that were previously not available. The high level of care and consideration also extends into this game's fantastic combat. When compared with other titles from the early 2000s like Halo Combat Evolved and Time Splitters 2, Metroid Prime cast aside the requirements for precision aiming in favor of an ingenious lock-on feature, because it didn't have twin-stick controls. By enabling the player to home in on an enemy at a time, a lot more emphasis was put on movement and dodging, allowing you to strafe around without losing sight of your target. Couple this with the ability to change weapons and visors on the fly, and Metroid Prime Remaster's combat remains exceptional. A huge shout-out goes to the game's scanning feature as well. In the greater Metroid franchise, this is wholly unique to the Prime sub-series and allows Samus to get vital information on the environment's flora and fauna. Simply select your scan visor, look for scannable objects with either an orange or red icon attached to them, and fill your noggin with juicy facts. Unlike cutscenes or audio logs, it's a remarkably unintrusive feature. If you're not fussed about it, you can just make your way through the game without bothering with it beyond the occasional mandatory sections, like scanning things to activate them, but those looking to learn everything and anything about the world of Talon 4, you're gonna be in for a great little time because, it just adds so much richness and layers to the world. It just feels right. Fans of the original game and its Wii counterpart will remember that Retro Studios included a fairly extensive gallery feature containing beautiful concept art from the title's development. The remastered version expands upon this considerably, adding a soundtrack gallery and 3D model viewer. As you come across more and more enemies in the game, you can hop into the model viewer and check out the grotesque features in glorious detail. It really is, it's just lovely. I love it. With the concept art as well, the team has also generously supplied materials from the game's original development for the GameCube and the new remaster in separate galleries, so there's plenty for Prime lovers to sink their teeth into. I know I will. With Metroid Prime Remastered, the seemingly impossible has been achieved. A masterpiece that has been made even better. The minor issues we have with the pointer controls and the occasional visual hiccup pale in comparison to the enhancements that have been made here. The visual improvements are extensive right down to the minor details, and it all comes together to create one of the best looking games on Switch, remaster or not. The new twin-stick control setup works flawlessly for both veterans and newcomers, but if you're itching to go back to the GameCube original controls, that option's there as well. With expanded gallery features to round things out, Metroid Prime Remastered feels like a new benchmark in how older games can be thoughtfully revitalized for the modern age. You've reached the end of the review. That means it's time for Alex's personal thoughts, and oh god, I love this. I started playing the remaster and I was like, yeah, this looks so much better. This is really cool. And then I went back and played the original, and after that was like an hour later, and I was like, wow, the original holds up well, but the remaster definitely looks better. And then I went straight from playing the original to playing the remaster again, and the difference is night and day. Like, the comparison video we did, I mean, it shines a light on it, but seeing it in person, sweet googly moogly. That's only enhanced further when you consider that most people played the original with, composite, and that looks terrible. This was, the footage we used was HDMI out using an adapter, using the digital output, so it really is as good as the GameCube can look. And it looks great, don't get me wrong, but the remaster is just leagues ahead. There's also so much granularity in what you can do with the controls. You can tweak so many little twiddly bits. You can change the sensitivity of the gyro on both axes, and the same with the camera controls, the twin stick. Oh, it's everything I hoped for, and more. And more, to be honest. It's wonderful. This is now the new gold standard for what all remasters should be. I mean, we've seen Skyward Sword, I enjoyed, don't get me wrong, but this really takes the biscuit. Like, I think they've remade every art asset. Like, I don't think there's an original asset in here at all. Like, it all looks brand new. Samus's model is just, tweaked. It's slightly different. It's got more polygons, more detail, this, that, and the other. And all the enemies look like they've been redone. It's just absolutely gorgeous. But it's the original game through and through. There's nothing that's been tweaked here, oh, we've streamlined this, we've done that, we've taken this part out because it was too hard. No, as far as I can tell, the original game is here. The only thing that I think is maybe slightly different, the scan visor seems to have a slightly longer range, but I can't say that for certain. I'm absolutely chuffed to bits. I'm thrilled. This is one of the best remasters, if not the best remaster I think I've ever played. And it was one of the best games ever made, in my opinion. And crikey blimey, that's a pretty spicy combination, my friend. There's just one more thing I need to mention, just one more thing. The sound, like the atmospheric sound, like when you're in a corridor, you shoot your arm cannon. It sounds completely different to when you're in an open area. There was a little bit of that in the original, but they've really enhanced it now. Oh, it's so good. It's just, oh God, if you're watching this and you think, that looks like fun, my God, you have to get this. Like, I was a little bit wobbly on the price first, but playing it again, nah, mate, £35, get it now. Get it twice. I mean, I'm actually going to get it twice because I want a physical as well, but I couldn't wait.